Hello and welcome to Connected, episode 456.
All right, stop.
I'm your host.
Hey, James. Too much.
But
You come back later on. Go back to the cupboard. We'll call you when we need you. Federico, it's over to you.
Thank you, Myke, for saving me and this podcast from whatever that was. And this is Connected, episode 456. Today's show is brought to you by Clean My Mac X, Sofa, and Notion. I'm one of your co-hosts, Federico, and it's my pleasure to introduce another real co-host to this program, Stephen Hackett. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Federico, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic as another real co-host of this podcast.
And let me introduce the third real co-host of this podcast, Mr. Myke Hurley.
The final and only.
That was weird. I'd say we just move into follow-up.
I have some very important Myke AI follow-up.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
So you remember on the last episode, I was talking about the Beat Studio Pro, which was exclusive information provided to this podcast.
Yeah.
I referenced about there potentially being no transparency mode, but I wasn't sure. The AI got back in touch with me, my anonymous informant, to tell me that it will have a transparency mode, not a transparent color option. That was the misunderstanding. So when they said no transparency or no transparent, what they meant was no see-through color, which is what we wanted.
Okay.
But it will have transparency mode. And I have one more piece of information that without active noise cancellation, the Beat Studio Pro will have 40 hours of battery life.
Wow.
Also, what I secretly wished would happen, but didn't mention, did happen. Federico sent this to me today, written up by friend of the show, Joe Rossignol at Mac Rumors. Apple is planning to release new Beat Studio Pro wireless over-ear headphones on July 19th, according to details shared by Myke Hurley on the Apple-related podcast Connected. We did it, boys! We're all going back around again.
So a couple of good news here. First, I believe this pretty much says that you are the new Mark Gurman. So
yes, confirmed.
Watch out, Bloomberg. Watch out, Bloomberg. And the second piece of good news.
Can I just say real quick, when we were in San Francisco, we were walking past the building on by the pier, and it seemed to be the Bloomberg building, which I didn't know they were there. We also had lunch up at a place called Ghirardelli Square, and there was like a bunch of people behind us, and Adina was convinced that she heard them talking about Mark Gurman, so maybe they worked at Bloomberg and they were talking about him, and Adina said, you should go in there. And I'd be like, I go in and the demand, where is Mark Gurman? I require rumors. But no, I didn't do that, but I did walk past the Bloomberg office. But yeah, watch out, Mark.
Are you as excited that you were on a blog? Because we could have done that for you.
But you didn't, did you? Neither of you.
Well, but no. But
you didn't do it, did you?
Well, also, we wouldn't call you Hurley, you know? We would just
because you don't
Myke.
fully respect me. That's
no,
why.
because we're friends. We just say Myke. I would just say Myke said.
Yeah.
But the
Hurley
second piece
said
of good...
he obtained the details from an anonymous source. Oh, I love it. Who previously shared accurate details about the Beat Studio Buds Plus. It's true. This is all true.
You skipped over a little parenthetical that makes this less impressive about you. It was found via Reddit, not because Joe listened to the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Joe does listen to the show, so I'm not really sure why that happened.
Maybe Joe was behind on the podcast queue. But you guys are ignoring another important detail from this story, which is that despite the things we say on this show, we're still an Apple-related podcast. So
I mean, it's still related, you know?
We got that going for us.
We're still relevant, I suppose.
I hope so.
Yes.
So now we know we have the ear of the Beats subreddit, which is good for us.
What's next for this sort of new career of yours as a rumor maker, as a leaker? Are you a leaker? We already know,
Stephen. No, I'm not a leaker.
You're not a leaker?
Because I'm not giving the information. This person is a leaker, I suppose.
You have to shave your eyebrows, I think, next is what happens traditionally.
Oh man, I had to really go through the old Rolodex in my brain to try and work out what that was about.
Remember that?
Unfortunately, we do. Yes.
It took me a minute. Well, I think Stephen's already spilled the beans. Watch out, Bloomberg. That's what's next for me. Watch out, Bloomberg.
Well, you know where to find them in San Francisco, apparently.
I do. I'm gonna next time I'm there. Which
you know what they get lunch. So
I'm gonna be like, watch out.
Yeah, you could leak where they're having lunch.
It was at the San Francisco Brew Pub thing.
Huge
I don't
if
remember
true.
what it was called.
Huge.
Yep.
Unprecedented.
You could just show up,
leaks.
wearing sunglasses and a hat and be like, I have information.
I have to, like I could have like a newspaper with eye holes cut in the middle of it.
You're deep throated, but for Beats headphones.
Currently.
We are halfway through my Kickstarter for the 2024 Apple History Calendar as we record this. 624 backers. Thank you all. You're each going to get something at the end of this. And if you want to get something at the end of it, you've got 2 weeks left.
Well, if they don't get anything from the end of it, they can copy and paste those Kickstarter terms into the
That's
comments.
true. I mean, there is technically make a pledge without a reward. Let me see how many people have done that. Let me look real quick. Dashboard. 2 backers have said no reward.
Okay.
So I've raised $11 that way. So that's nice.
I gotta say, nice people, but they're a couple of suckers.
Yeah, I mean, $5 you could have gotten the digital wallpaper pack. $10 the wallpaper pack and the calendar.
Why would you? So on average, these if you average out that $11, both of those people could have gotten something. Like they really don't want something. That's interesting.
Yeah,
It's like they are paying you to please not send them something.
that's right. Please don't mail me anything.
Please don't. Well, please don't send me anything.
Yes, I'm giving you my money, but please stop it. Like,
Please don't. Please don't. Hey, whatever floats your boat. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
$36 gets you the wall calendar and the digital goodies, and then the vast majority of people, 490 currently out of the 624, get it all for $40. A calendar, some stickers, a digital pack of wallpapers, a digital calendar, so you can have all this stuff in your calendar with all your other events. Every year, that's by far the biggest. It's 79% of backers right now, 85% of the money. So go check it out. Just a couple of weeks left. And I got some early versions of the stickers. We're finalizing that, and I'm going to share those and update on the project, hopefully by the end of the week. So keep an eye out for that too.
You only get to big money hack it if people give on the top level, right? That's what takes you from just money hack it to big money hack it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's right. I got to pay for these calendars, I spend a lot of money on postage every year. I've had a couple people ask, hey, I want to buy multiple calendars. Go ahead and back with one, and then you will get an email a little bit later in the fall. I use BackerKit to fulfill everything, and you will get an email link, and you can add additional items and then pay for those separately. I will say, if you use hide my email or sign in with Apple, where it gives you a wacky Apple iCloud email address, you will not get my emails from BackerKit. I don't know why. This affected somebody who worked on this feature at Apple, and it's still broken.
So you hate privacy.
I have your physical address.
He hates privacy, loves money. That's the Stephen Hackett pledge right there.
If you do use hide my email or sign with Apple or whatever, I will send you an individually crafted direct message via Kickstarter with your BackerKit link.
It's a TextExpander snippet. It's not individually crafted. I don't believe you.
That is wild to me, though, that still doesn't work properly.
It is wild.
Makes me angry every year.
But I don't even understand why it doesn't work.
I think because when you do that, you're only supposed to get email to that from the domain that it was set up on, and I am using it technically through a different website, so I kind of get it.
I thought part of the point of it was the way that Apple pitched it is then you can see who's sold your email.
I did to myself.
But yeah, maybe they're also doing something weird that is very
yeah. So keep that in mind. But I will send you a direct message, or maybe I send you a postcard in the mail and say, "Hey, what do you want?" And you mail it back to me, and then I mail you your calendar. We could do it that way too.
Can I get a pledge from you? To people that do that, can you just send them a postcard that just says, "Hey, what do you want?" with no other information?
What do you want? That's very threatening.
Hey, exactly. Just, hey, what do you want?
What do you want?
No URL, no return address or anything. And that's just their problem. If they should have heard this.
It's in those cutout magazine letters, like a ransom note.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of a reverse ransom note. A ransom note would be, I tell you what I want.
The old reverse ransom. I'll give you anything you want. What do you want?
Yeah. Send me $40 and you get a calendar.
Incredible.
Other follow-up, we are in the metaverse. Myke, do you want to tell us about this?
It's not called that anymore.
We are in XR.
We're in the Visionverse.
The Visionverse.
Yeah. So Jan Blumberg, this is a what we call in the business a GitHub repo, which is
Well, it's what it's called. It's not.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you're in the business like me, in the business like me, which I am in,
Are you in the
we call this a
business
GitHub repo.
Are you in the business of GitHub repos? Like what?
Yeah. You
What
should
kind
see
of
me, man.
business is
I'm
that?
merging, I'm pulling, I'm forking, and I'm raising those issues.
No,
Oh my God.
you don't have access to any of that in our shared repos.
You don't know.
Yeah, I do know.
I've already merged, and I've already forked
That's not-
the CMS.
You're just using words you don't understand. You just
I know what they mean.
repeating.
If you fork a project, you're making a copy of it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
If you are merging, then you are integrating some like code that's been written into the main project.
What's a pull request?
A pull request is when, hold on, I think I do know this. A pull request is that when you make a suggestion of code to be implemented.
Yeah, geez, you actually do know a lot about
You
GitHub.
are in
Suck
the
it.
business.
Because I'm in the business. You didn't trust me. I wasn't lying. I'm in the business. But in this business today of Jan Blomberg, they have taken the Ricky's API, which award-winning shortcutter Jason wrote, who does Wikipedia. They made an API of the information that they use to build their wiki-based tracker of the Rickies. And Jan Blomberg has created a beta visionOS application to show Ricky's info. And you can, I guess you can fork and merge and pull with this if you want.
Yeah, I'm into that.
I have a question for you about the metaverse.
Okay.
So now we're in the metaverse. Which one of us is going to fight Zuck? This was a joke that I was going to make, like whatever. But there's a piece of information that I don't understand. So I wrote in our document which one of us will fight Zuck. There is a bullet point underneath that says no one if Elon's mom steps in again, and I have no idea what that means. What does that mean?
Do you know why the fight was canceled?
The fight was canceled?
It was
Yes.
canceled?
Oh,
The
No.
fight was canceled supposedly because Elon's mom, May Musk, told him not to do it.
Why does Elon have his mom stuff? I mean, I already have the answer. Of course, Elon has his.
You don't get advice from your mom?
Yeah, but like if I get into an argument with somebody, I don't call my mom. I'm not 12, you know?
Mom, Zuckerberg's picking on me.
May Musk is like
Mom
was like in fashion, right? Model. There we go. A model.
I don't know anything about May Musk other than
Because those absolutely cringeworthy, ridiculous photos of him at the Met Gala, he's with his mum, like from a couple of years ago.
Let's see. Okay, here we go. May Musk, born April 19th, 1948, is a model and dietitian. She's been a model for 50 years, appearing on the covers of magazines including Time, Women's Day, Vogue, Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. She holds Canadian, South African, and American citizenship. She's a registered dietitian. There you go.
So May stepped in and said no?
So that's what it seems like.
Okay.
We have a link to SB Nation in the show notes.
We didn't get to state our like personal feelings on this.
Because it's dumb. Because it's so dumb.
I wanted Zuck to kick his. That's what I wanted to happen.
same.
And that's what was
Same.
going to happen. And I wanted it to happen.
Yeah.
Because he needs to have some kind of ramification for his actions. But, it didn't
Pour sweet baby race on him at the end. That would have been sweet.
That is going on the ribs. Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. The Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's is very good. Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. We have just applied the Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. Maybe throw some Sweet Baby Ray's on the ribs and take it from there.
he would have smoked him. That's what would have happened.
I was going to say, for a while, Zuckerberg only ate meat that he killed. So
Oh my God, I forgot
having
that.
Elon tonight, boys.
Oh my.
He was going to hunt him.
Smoking
He was
meats.
going to hunt him down.
Sweet baby race.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's actually some exciting Apple Arcade news going on.
This is incredible. Apple Arcade's July lineup is out of this world. Like there are a lot
I'm
of
very
games,
excited about one of these.
but there are 3 games specifically that are worth mentioning. One is Slay the Spire. It's going to be Slay the Spire Plus, so it's one of those like, hey, we're just going to put the whole game in here for free, and you could use everything. Slay the Spire is a combat card game, which has been very critically well received. It's a game that I've been meaning to play for a long time. I will now play it because of this. Stardew Valley is coming to Apple Arcade, which is a huge get. Like, that is, for anybody who has not played Stardew Valley before, I really recommend. The iPad version of this game is fantastic. And it's because Stardew Valley ultimately is like, it is a farming simulator, but it was built for the PC, so it's very click focused. You just like click where you want. And so the Apple Pencil and Stardew Valley is a match made in heaven. And the big news is Ridiculous Fishing. I think it's called Ridiculous Fishing EX. It is a fully remastered version of the game. This was interesting in the gaming circles because Vlambeer, the company who made Ridiculous Fishing, they shut down in 2020, but they hired a studio called Co-op to do this remaster for them, and to put it out. So this Ridiculous Fishing is one of the best iOS games ever made.
Yep.
But obviously, is I don't even know if it would work on a modern device. But this is going to be fantastic to have back, and I'm so excited about it. It comes out these games are coming out all through July. If you go to Apple Arcade, you can like press the get button to like pre-order them. But Ridiculous Fishing EX is coming on July 14th.
I was very excited to see Ridiculous Fishing. It gave me feelings like when Tiny Wings came back.
Yes,
like they are of the same age and genre, and I'm very excited about it.
It's an absolute classic, and I'm so excited for this game.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to just give a quick shout out today to Broadcasts, the app by Steve Troughton-Smith. Steve makes this app. It was, I believe, ostensibly created to listen to free radio broadcasts on an iOS app, but it's also
like this one.
Well, but it was like more traditional radio.
Yes.
But it also supports web live streams like ours. So if you listen live, broadcasts to our shows, which you can, we have a calendar on relay.fm/live, which tells you when the episodes are going to stream live. Broadcast is the best way to do that. But Steve just integrated SharePlay into the app, which is a really smart addition. So you could listen to Relay FM live shows with your friends. Mm-hmm. And don't forget, you don't need to have a FaceTime call going anymore. You can have it just started up via iMessage as well. This is something added in iOS 16.
He had a post on Mastodon showing in one window the live page on Relay FM, and then a second window broadcast playing. I think it was Upgrade the other day, because I worked with him, and there's a link on the Relay Live page. Like if you open that link, it adds our live stream into the app, which is really cool. And I'm super pleased he's added SharePlay. And I kind of had this thing. I don't remember if we talked about it or not. So if we did, just tell me to stop. But SharePlay is one of those things that when it was announced, we talked about it. It's like, maybe that's sort of out of COVID. Like, I want to watch Ted Lasso with my sibling or, family member or friend, and I can't see them because of the pandemic. And I think that's true. I think Apple, at least partially, it was built in response of that, but clearly also built in mind with visionOS in mind. So you could be, miles and miles away from somebody and watch like a big screen movie inside of the Vision Pro together. And I think that's cool, and I'm glad that he's added it ahead of that. Yeah.
It seems like SharePlay is integrated into a lot of things on the visionOS, I think.
Yeah.
And so I remember, we long-time listeners remember we had like a 2-episode arc of like things that people were doing with SharePlay, because I feel like no one was using it, but Connected listeners wrote in to tell us how they used it, which was very helpful. But I feel like maybe I would be more likely to use some of these features now. It seems like it's becoming better and better, and like SharePlay is, you'll be able to start with AirDrop in iOS 17, and I believe, Federico, do you remember what other things are coming for SharePlay? I feel like it was featured quite a lot in the presentation.
Yeah, I think that the best thing that's coming to SharePlay this year is letting other people in the car with you contribute to your music playback queue using like local SharePlay, which I think is a feature that makes a lot of sense. And the setup is pretty sweet in that like you generate this QR code that you can just show to other folks, and they will be able to make like a shared queue as you're driving. And I think, and I kind of want to try this the next time I'm driving, like to Viterbo or something. I kind of want to paste that QR code on Mastodon and have people build a music queue for me as I'm driving. I want to see if that works over the internet. Probably a terrible idea, but we'll see. And I believe SharePlay, and I haven't really looked into this yet because I started watching different sessions this year. But I think you will be able to start SharePlay by tapping two phones together as well. I think it's also part of that like set of features based on NFC.
Yeah, that's the all of the AirDrop improvements, right? Like it all goes together.
Yeah.
This episode of Connected is made possible by Clean My Mac X. A bunch of us are already running, or at least thinking about running, the macOS beta. Well, junk files, processes that get stuck, and malicious apps can slow down our Macs, even before we're on the beta train. Maintaining your Mac, whether old or new, is essential for it to run smoothly. Clean My Mac X is an all-in-one Mac maintenance tool that takes care of junk, faulty apps, and malware in an efficient, aesthetically pleasing, and hassle-free way. It has this really cool menu bar app that you can use to monitor your Mac's health, CPU load, and more. With nearly 30 million downloads and 15 years of expertise, this app is a must-try for any macOS user. Apple continues to pack Macs with more innovative features, and Clean My Mac X ensures that your hardware remains healthy and running at peak performance. My favorite thing about Clean My Mac X is they package all these tools together in really what is a beautiful Mac app. So you're not running around running a bunch of different utilities that all look kind of bad. Clean My Mac X is beautiful and easy to use. It'll even remind you when it's time to run some maintenance. All Connected listeners get 5% off. Check out the link in the show notes or go to macpaw.app/connected. That's macpaw.app/connected, or click the link in the show notes for 5% off your copy of Clean My Mac X. Our thanks to Clean My Mac X for their support of the show and Relay FM. Federico, you had a really interesting post on Mastodon about those little laundry tags that we all have on our shirts and our shorts and our pants, and they all have little symbols and no one really knows what they mean. Apparently iOS 17 knows what they mean. Can you explain this?
So there's two different categories of symbols that Visual Lookup can recognize in iOS 17. The first one is the laundry tags that I posted today on Mastodon. And the second one is the car dashboard symbols. The little like icons that light up if you have a car. Mm-hmm. And it's like, check the brakes, or you got to change the oil, or the temperature is too high, like all that sort of stuff. This is all built into the Photos app. So I'm going to try and explain what it looks like. If you have a photo that contains the kind of content that Visual Lookup recognizes, in iOS 17, you will find sparkles around the info icon when you're viewing an image. So the button with the lowercase I. Mm-hmm. If it has like useful information, it gets little sparkles around it. So either you tap that info button or you swipe up on a photo, you will get above the metadata, like as the very first entry in that lower half of the page, you will get the Visual Lookup category. So if it's a dog, for example, you will get it will say dog with a little like paw symbol, and you can tap on it. Dog. You can tap on
Dog.
it, and it tells you which breed of dog it thinks it's in the photo. Also like recipes, like pictures of meals and food should be recognized in iOS 17. And in the case of laundry symbols, it'll say laundry care. And so you tap on it and you get a list of recognized symbols from the image. And based on the picture that I tested with today, it got like, I would say like 5 or 6 out of 9 or something. So it wasn't all of them, but also it was pretty good. And he told me, for example, that didn't have to tumble dry that shirt, which unfortunately I had already tumble dried many times before. So this shirt is ruined.
We've all been there, buddy.
Well, I mean, it just proves that that label is a lie because you've done it. So nothing happened.
Yeah, well, or maybe I always, did this wrong and this shirt is forever damaged. Who knows? But yeah, it works pretty nicely, I think. And it's just one of I guess this expansion of visual lookup continues year after year. But the thing I believe should happen at some point, and I think it will happen at some point, especially because of the Vision Pro and visionOS, this information should really be presented in real time as you're using the camera.
Yes.
And I understand why it's not right now, because the processing power to do this in real time, maybe it's just not there. But I would expect that with the iPhone 15 Pro or 16 Pro, like at some point, we will get something called like live lookup. And as you're pointing your camera to things in real time, the camera will probably give you a little indicator that says, hey, there is a laundry tag, or this symbol means that you got to change the oil in your car, and so forth.
Or the plant lookup, which has been there for a little while now. People are using third-party apps for that because they don't know that it's in Photos. If it was just in the camera app, I think it would be much more discoverable.
Right now, you can try it, and it's in Photos, but you got to swipe up to check it out at the top of the metadata for the selected image.
I want to check in with betas. Let's start with you, Myke. Are you running anything?
No. But I...
Cool. Next? No.
No. I feel like I feel pretty confident that as soon as beta 3 drops, I'm going to put it on my iPhone. There are apps and things that I know are not going to work well anymore, and I want to limit the amount of time that I have to deal with that. But I am very keen to try it on my iPhone, especially.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do what you do and wait for beta 3. We're a week out from beta 2, but next week is a holiday here in the US, so maybe we'll get it a few days later than normal. Maybe they'll wait until the week after.
Is it every week or every 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's every 2 weeks, at least in the early part of the summer.
Right.
But I've got it running on my iPad mini and on a MacBook Air. And on the iPad in particular, things are fine. Like sometimes you get weird issues, like the keyboard doesn't show up when it's supposed to, but honestly, like iPadOS just does that sometimes anyways. Mm-hmm. But I haven't come across any apps that don't work. Now I don't have any banking apps, which I know are usually problematic for a lot of people in the beta time. Mm-hmm. Don't have any of those on there. But like video streaming apps all work, email and Ivory and all those things, Discord and Slack all seem fine. Battery life's pretty bad, but that's not unexpected at this point. We're still pretty early on. There is a funny thing, and I need to create a feedback about it. I haven't yet. The iPad mini has Touch ID, and if you have the iPad in the orientation where the USB-C port is on the right side and the buttons are on the left side, the little UI for it says rest to open that kind of tells you where the Touch ID button is. That just shows up on top of any widgets that are in the left-hand side. There's no blurring or like it doesn't show up in like a little bubble. It's just like, it's like my calendar, it's like edit connected and then right on top of it, rest to open. So like it's some little visual things to take care of. I do have to say, like, I like having the widgets on the lock screen. I don't think it's as useful as it is on the phone because my iPad is in a case most of the time. I think a lot of people have the cover of their iPad, all closed up. You don't see them, but it is cool that they're there. I like it being down the left-hand side. It does make me wish for more spots on the iPhone because we're limited to just the 4. But all in all, iPadOS beta feels pretty good. And on the Mac side of things, it's a very similar story. I haven't really run into any compatibility issues with any apps. I don't have my full setup replicated over there because I know the audio stuff won't work. But Todoist and Mail and Safari and Chrome and, kind of the regular apps that I'm using day to day all seem fine. The performance is fine. The battery life is fine. It's Sonoma feels pretty solid at this point.
Are you really using Todoist?
I'm going to give Reminders another shot, but I'm going to wait a little bit further down the road.
Oh, really?
Why not? Yeah, do it. I do it every summer.
I know you are. I know you're going to give it another shot. Of course you are.
Someone, it was for Mac Power User. Someone sent us some feedback via the website, wanting to know if we could talk about TickTick at some point.
TickTick.
I was like, get behind me, Satan! Like I don't need another one.
TickTick.
But the TickTick's great. It's just Todoist is always what I go back to. But all in all, for beta 2. I don't think there's anything super unexpected in terms of performance or battery life. And things feel pretty good. Like the new features that are there all work, and I like where things are. So my phone will probably make the jump in the next round, like yours, Myke.
So I have the betas on my phone, iPad Pro, iPad Mini, and Watch. And I'm just having the best time. I think, honestly, and I've been doing this for quite some time at this point, I do think it's the most fun beta season I've had in many, many years.
See, now you're going to make me want to install it now.
Because like with Stage Manager on the iPad, I just feel so satisfied that I was right about a bunch of things and that Apple actually listened. And it's such a pleasure to use now. With the Watch, the Watch app design, like the new Watch app design, has really grown on me over the past couple of weeks, and the widgets are growing on me on the watch face. It takes a while to adjust, like become a habit to swipe up or use the digital crown, but they're growing on me. And with the iPhone, I'm just having the best time with interactive widgets. Third-party developers already have some betas out. I remember when it used to be that you had to wait until some point in August for developers to be able to release test flight betas for a new version of iOS. Now they can just do it even after beta 1. It's wild. And I already have a bunch of interactive widgets on the home screen. And they're standby. I should also say, I put the beta firmware on my AirPods Pro. Like, I'm just having so much fun this year. And my general takeaway, which is like a theme that I will write about when I do my first impressions for the public beta. I think they're not like iOS and iPadOS, they're not huge releases this year, right? Like, they have a lot of smaller things that in aggregate make it a lot of fun. And it, especially iOS, is making me feel that kind of sense of fun and exploration of apps that I felt with iOS 14 3 years ago when widgets first came to the home screen. Like I'm feeling that again. Like, there's all these widgets that I want to try, all these things that I want to experiment with. There's more widgets than I have space for on my home screen. And then there's the lock screen, and then there's standby. Like, it's a very good feeling that I have so far. And sure, the battery life kind of sucks at the moment. Yes, I agree with that. But it's just fun. Like, it wasn't, I mean, you guys remember last year. For me, wasn't fun.
That was no good.
iOS 15 was all right. But yeah, it's making me feel those iOS 14 feelings again. And I kind of love it. Oh, and the stickers. I should mention the stickers. I'm making all kinds of stickers. Like stickers of my dogs in ridiculous
poses. I feel like
poses.
me and Steven are holding back the group thread, you know?
You are.
Like,
you
our
really
group
are.
thread could be popping off right now, but we're just like, we're holding it back.
You have like years worth of old pictures that could be transformed into stickers, and you're not doing it. So kind of shame on you, you know?
Like a fool. I'm also like really, really excited to try out the keyboard.
Oh yes, it's especially. I mean, the new transformer model. I believe it is on the English, French, and Spanish keyboards.
Okay.
So the three of us, we all use the English keyboard. It's so good. Like, I'm not kidding, the autocorrect, and I will try to make this point in my review later this year. It's not a flashy new feature, but when you try it, just to tell people, upgrade because you're going to make fewer typos on your phone, and it's so much better when you type. It's really, really well done. And I said this like a couple of days after I put beta 1 on my phone while I was in Cupertino. I can confirm it now. It's been, 3 weeks? Mm-hmm. It makes such a huge difference to the point where, like, over the past couple of weeks, I have done a couple of blog posts for Mac Stories from my phone which I hadn't done in years just because the autocorrect was so bad. And now I can just feel like, if I have a short post, like a short link that I want to do, I can just do it from my phone. And I don't hate doing it anymore.
Yeah, it's good on the iPad too. It's fast and it seems like it knows what I want most of the time. Definitely more often than not. But I think we'll all feel it the most on the iPhone.
Yeah. So the general takeaway, I guess, is that iOS 17 doesn't look like it doesn't look like it's got. Like, it doesn't look any different, right? Because even widgets, they have the same design language as before. They look the same on the lock screen. And sure, there's standby. But like, it may not look different, but it's got all these little things that, taken together, it makes it so much better than 16 in like tangible ways. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, you want to start music from your home screen, you can do it. It doesn't look like it, but it makes the phone more useful, is how I would describe it.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Sofa. When a friend recommends a great new TV show or a book or a podcast, what do? Scribble it down on a sticky note? Maybe you're like me, or at least the way I used to be before Sofa, and put it in my task manager? No. You're going to forget about it, and you're going to feel stuck not knowing what to watch or listen or play next. So this is where Sofa comes in. With the Sofa app, you can create lists of almost anything: podcast, apps, books, board games, movies, TV shows, music albums, and even video games. Then you can use these lists to decide your next book to read, movie to watch, or video game to play. Sofa's design is awesome. It's inspired by some of the best productivity apps out there, but it's focused on helping you be more intentional with your downtime. You really don't want to keep track of the stuff in your regular to-do manager because this is your downtime. You don't want reminders of work tasks when you're trying to unwind on a nice quiet evening. So use Sofa to get a dedicated place for organizing your downtime. With Sofa, you can create unlimited lists, sync your data with iCloud, track your activity, and more completely free. And if you're looking for even more power, upgrade to Super Sofa, which is a fantastic name, by the way, to customize lists with the cover images and descriptions of your choosing, add sticky notes to items, personalize the look and feel with over 100 different themes in the app, and a whole lot more. Sofa is beautiful, it's fun, and when I've got downtime, I know exactly where to look, something I can check out. Sofa is available for the iPhone, iPad, and Apple Silicon Macs. Connected listeners get a special 45% off their annual subscription to Super Sofa for the first year by heading over to sofahq.com/connected. The link is in the show notes, but once again, it's sofahq.com/connected to get 45% off an annual subscription to Super Sofa. Our thanks to Sofa for their support of the show.
All right, so we will now actually welcome James Thomson to the program. Hello, James.
Hello. It is a pleasure. Thanks for coming on my podcast.
Anytime. So other than being a podcast host that people hear from time to time in Place to Place, James Thomson, I would say, is most known for his work on PCalc and more recently Dice by PCalc. And I would also say as being a lightning rod in the developer community for situations that can occur, either fun or dramatic.
I think that's a very nice way of putting it.
And so we thought at this inflection point in Apple's developer history and platforms that we would bring you on to get some thoughts about the Vision Pro SDK, which became available towards the end of last week. So I guess before we dive into the SDK itself and what developers have access to and what they don't, as a developer, what is your Vision Pro kind of vibe check? You can throw in what you think of it yourself, but I would love to know as a person who makes apps, how are you feeling about the Vision Pro?
Developers.
Indeed. It's one of those.
I mean, I would say that the vibes are, all good on a technological level. The hardware, I mean, unlike some people here, I've not tried it, but the hardware seems pretty state-of-the-art. Apple have done a lot of work to make it easier to build a 3D app, even if you don't actually have a lot of 3D experience. Like they've done a lot of integration between SwiftUI and RealityKit for sticking 3D content in your interface. So like everything about that, absolutely great. I'm still not 100% convinced yet that this is the future, or perhaps more accurately, a feature that I personally will be able to use given the state of my eyes.
I want to start with some of the basics of visionOS. And I think kind of the building blocks for these apps are what Apple call windows, volumes, and spaces. Could you talk a little bit about what those are and the differences between them?
Yeah, so like windows are pretty much the existing 2D windows that you know and love, but they can also have some 3D content sitting in them. You know, it's a sheet of frosted glass, little grab bar off the bottom of the window, so you can drag the windows around and put them wherever you want in your apartment, apparently. There's a little close button to the left of that, and you can resize them. And there's a control on the corner that's kind of very similar to the Stage Manager one. Volumes, on the other hand, are kind of like 3D windows. They've got a width and a height, but they've also got a depth. They can't be resized by the user, and they don't have the glass background. They're more like a sort of box that you can put lots of 3D stuff in. And the user can move them around like a window and put them where they want them. And this is probably what something like Dice by Peacock would be. You know, if you imagine like a little dice tray with dice piled up in it, or bananas, or, you know, a chessboard, something like that, that's what a volume is.
In theory, could you... I mean, I actually didn't know they couldn't be resized. That is intriguing. So do you set a size? Like a...
Yes, you set a size in meters, I think, for this thing. So it's a physical...
Even though you can't resize it, somewhat similar to how you would start something with ARKit, right? Because like I assume you define size for an ARKit object, even though it can be changed.
Yeah, I mean, the ARKit stuff, I mean, we'll come to that in the spaces stuff in a sec, but this is more like you are creating this thing and the user has more control over it. Like the user can pick it up and they can put it somewhere. And as a developer, you don't really need to do any of the AR stuff in terms of like binding it to a specific space, like sitting on the table or something like that. So the system is handling all that.
And so with dice, you would effectively create the volume would be the dice tray. And could you have it that like you could have dice tracked with someone's hand?
I mean, like so the hand tracking stuff, I am not 100% you can do in this mode. I mean, you can do things like you can touch an object and you can interact with it, but I don't know if it will do the full kind of like you could literally pick it up.
But I could press a button and a dice would bounce around inside of the tray or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that'd be great.
And like you would have like a certain, like if the dice tray was at the bottom, you would have a certain amount of height to your volume that would be like where the dice could be, but they can't escape that little sort of force field.
Those Ricky's coin flips are going to get real dramatic.
Oh, yeah.
Don't mind me, boys. Just going to put on the old Vision Pro.
But full spaces are the sort of the big boys. You just see your own content, so no other apps. You can do full AR, so you see the real world. And, you know, and you have fish swimming around your head or whatever it is. You can do a full VR, so you don't see any of the real world, and you can see pretty much anywhere in between with the turning of the digital crown. But you can specify if you only want one or the other, and you don't want the user to choose. And in the fully immersive spaces, it seems like you're limited to like a 1.5 meter by 1.5 meter square around you. So it doesn't really have the control over something like a Quest or a PSVR 2 where you can, you know, you define the play area and say this area is safe for me to be in. So it seems to be more kind of less geared towards you sort of walking around a space. But spaces are also where you can do stuff with custom hand tracking, full control over pretty much everything the user sees. You can put 3D content anywhere in it. It's not just like in these windows and volumes, and you get more information about the user's environment. So for doing things like the hand tracking or seeing where the walls and the surfaces are in the room. So if I was doing dice as a fully immersive thing, this is where I would pull in, you know, like I could see that my desk, and if I rolled a dice, it could fall off the desk and onto the floor. And that's something you can do at the moment in like iOS, iPadOS, AR kit stuff.
This might sound like a strange question, but there is a reason to it. For as much as you know, is it a 1.5 meter square around you, or is it a 1.5 meter square from a specific point?
I think it's like you are in the center of a square, which is 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters.
And does this only count when you're in the like VR mode, or do you have this when you're doing something immersive in AR?
So I believe that this is just the documentation suggests it's just when you're in the fully immersive mode, but I don't think this stuff is working entirely in the simulator yet, so there's some open questions.
Probably pretty hard to simulate.
Yes.
The reason I asked this is the dinosaur experience thing. That was quite clearly an immersive view, but it was definitely occupying a larger than 1.5 meter square.
Yeah, it was bigger than that.
Yeah, sure. It was the whole room. It was projected on the wall opposite where we were sitting, which was much further than 1.5 meters away.
So there was a volume then, I guess.
No, that wouldn't be a volume. It would be. I presume that was in AR mode, like you could see the room.
That's why I asked, because like you could see the room, so it sounds like it was a full like space, an AR space. But maybe the AR spaces are not restricted in size.
I think it's when you're in the fully immersive, like you can't see the world at all stuff. If you try and go out of that initial area, it'll just drop it down so you can see the outside.
I expect that this is Apple's way of trying to get around having to draw boundaries.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the way that the Quest and the PSVR 2 does that.
But it's not elegant, though, is it?
Yeah.
Like, and it really isn't. Like, my hope is that, as time goes on, like, we don't have to do that at all with these things. That just, like, the technology in these headsets are smart enough to intuit what I can and can't walk into, right? Like, I feel like they should be able to realize, like, this is a table. Like, I can't walk into the table.
Yeah, I don't get the impression that this is geared at the moment for sort of walking around. No. When you're in one of these things, you're sitting on your couch while your family despairs beside you.
Yeah, I can walk around 1.5 meters at a time. It's gonna be a very short walk.
Wow,
long thighs, big steps.
Just run in place. That's what it is. So help me correct me if I'm wrong here, James. So setting aside pCalc for Mac, you were day one on the App Store for the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple Watch,
the Apple TV.
The Apple TV.
Yes.
I think that's all of them.
With game controller support, never forget.
With game controller support.
Yes.
So you have quite some experience in terms of dealing with a brand new SDK, right? Sort of taking your existing commercial product and making it work for a new Apple platform. And right now, like I remember, for example, the days of like the original iPad, when developers would cut out like a piece of cardboard and make it look like a tablet, because the iPad was announced in January, but it wouldn't ship until April. So some folks did that. How are you finding, like, what are your early impressions from like right now, a technical perspective, like using a simulator instead of the real hardware? And if you allow me an immediate follow-up question, do you have any interest? See, I'm trying to be efficient. So that's good. First question is, what are your early impressions? And follow-up, are you considering any of the in-person labs this summer?
So designing an app for a device that you haven't used is always a challenge. And honestly, this is the biggest one yet. So, the difference between using a phone app in the simulator where you're clicking on buttons or actually holding a phone in your own hand is totally different. And you get a sense of what button sizes work, how much your hand can move and things like that. So that was difficult enough. But this, I've got no idea what feels right in a 3-dimensional space for the user interface. You can do a lot in the simulator if you're building a traditional app with some, let's say, light 3D elements. I think it's going to be way harder if you're trying to build a 3D first app, like particularly something like a game. They've extended SwiftUI out and stuff, and you can make 3D apps in theory in the simulator as easy as you can make 2D ones. But yeah, it's a tricky problem to solve, and I think I think the first like apps that we're going to get for this thing might not be much more than like your iPad, iPhone apps with some, bells and whistles. As for the labs, I mean, they're going to be, we're going to be able to apply for them. Same for the SDK and the developer kit. And, I will put my name down and somebody will see my name and will either go, that guy.
Yeah.
And maybe.
Or,
I mean,
that guy.
That guy.
Yes. There could be two different. I mean, I think it's going to be like extremely oversubscribed, particularly in getting hardware. Mm-hmm. So I can hope that people know who I am, but then maybe that's a downside. Who knows?
So you're saying you got to roll the dice.
We can come back to the dice puns later.
I mean, I would expect. So you know what you're saying about the types of apps. There will obviously be a lot of apps that are more traditional in UI. I would expect we would see quite a few of the volume type apps as well. Like even if you can't test them fully, like I can imagine people would do their best at the simulator and give it a go. I'm sure that the spaces will be less so. However, I would also expect that Apple will prioritize developer kits to developers who are making full space environments because
well, I mean, of course I'll be making a full space environment for dice.
You like dice from all angles. You are in the tray and the dice are coming at you. But that makes sense though, right? Like it's the hardest thing, as you said, it is the hardest thing to test without some hardware. Like without the ability to plug in, say, a HTC Vive into your Mac and do it, right? Which is something we were wondering about. But it seems like the hardware developer kits will be coming so much sooner than people expected that maybe even, they'll prioritize the spaces at first, but, in a few months' time, maybe they'll start giving out to developers who are looking to make different types of apps as well because we're so far away from the device actually shipping.
I mean, I think people like Microsoft clearly got access to at least the developer kit, if not hardware already. And I mean, that like the Microsoft Office that they showed up, you could have totally done that just in the simulator. I am curious whether it's going to be like a one and done with the developer kits, that they just say, right, the first 1,000 people who have a reasonable idea, you will get one for 6 months and then you give it back.
I don't know. I see what you said. The only reason that I would have paused on that is just because of how early they've opened it up. Like, they've got to be realistic. Like, people may not have had their idea until September, right? So
I mean,
I don't know.
I think the reason that they're going so early is because this is such a different thing. I mean, it's much more than like the watch or the TV even. It's completely different way of thinking. So yeah, that's why I think we're getting the such a long lead time. And if there's companies like, if there's like game developers or whatever who are trying to bring stuff across, they're going to need a really good run up to do this too.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Notion. Project management tools are supposed to help you move faster and stay organized. But if you're still jumping between like 50 browser tabs just to do your job, then you probably haven't found the right tool yet. And nothing will slow you down like using the wrong tools to get work done. That's where Notion comes in. Notion has just launched Notion Projects. This is super exciting because it includes new, powerful ways to manage your projects, and you can leverage the power of their built-in AI features. Notion Projects combine project management with your docs, your knowledge base, and AI, so you can stop jumping between tools and stop paying too much for them. In just one workspace, you can do everything you need to get your projects over the finish line, from brainstorming to drafting launch plans to organizing sprints and keeping everyone on deadline. And Notion is super customizable. Everyone has preferences for how they like to view projects, so you can view everything whatever way works for you. Maybe that's a timeline or a table or a Kanban view. There's also powerful filtering and automation features, so you can work exactly the way that you want. On top of that, Notion AI helps you automate all that tedious overhead, like summarizing meeting notes, finding next steps, and that frees you up to do the deep work. If you're one of those people where you have your work scattered to the wind across a bunch of different platforms, check out Notion. The AI stuff really is powerful, really speeding up a lot of tedious work. Do your most efficient work with Notion projects. You can try it for free today at Notion, Notion, notion.com/connected, and use our link. You're supporting our show. So go now, notion.com/connected. Our thanks to Notion for their support of the show.
We've had you on because we've been seeing your images of the simulator, and we've been seeing so many other developers share their images of the simulator and their apps running. But this simulator looks very different to other Apple simulators they've released in the past, which tend to just be like windows that look like the device, because it's easy to just draw a square and that's where the screen sits within. But Apple have built a 3D environment to test your apps in with different rooms inside, which is also very fun to me. I don't really know why they made different rooms, but I kind of love that they did. What is it like to actually use this simulator? Like, how do you control it and maneuver within it and stuff like that?
So it's a bit like playing the world's worst FPS game. So you're moving around like these little preset environments that you said, there's a small apartment, there's a museum, and there's different lighting conditions you can pick. And default is if you click on something, it's like you were looking at it and you've moved your fingers together to do the little gesture. And there's controls along the bottom of the simulator which change things so that if you change it, you can click and drag, and instead of the clicks going to the app, it will actually just pan your view around, and there's some way you can move up and left and right and stuff within the space. But it's kind of feel like, I haven't actually tried this. I should connect a game controller up to it and see if you can actually move around it slightly easier. You can? Well, there you go.
Yeah, you can connect a PlayStation controller and move around a bit. Well, I'm doing this because our friend of the show, _David Smith, he texted me and said, which game controller shall I buy so I can use the simulator? So I'm expecting that, yes, you can, or maybe he was just wondering for control, but I believe you can move around the simulator with a game controller.
The thing is, it doesn't actually get you much, because with the stuff that you're doing, particularly if you're doing the windows of the volume stuff, it's right in front of you. And, you're seeing a 2D representation of it, but it's kind of filling most of that screen. Yes, you can leave it in the kitchen and go for a wander around the apartment, but that's not really helpful when you're trying to develop an app.
I have a follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite simulator room? or let me rephrase it. If Tim Cook asked you to hey, you gotta wait for me here for 30 minutes in one of these rooms, which one would you wait for Tim Cook for 30 minutes alone? In which room?
I mean, I think it's got to be the museum, because I would feel quite cultured and I could look at the art on the walls and, I would feel calm, I think, as I met Tim.
Okay.
But if I'm in some random apartment and I don't know whose it is, I'm just going to be stressed.
All right. Fair enough.
I can't remember who it was now. Was it Simon Stovering? Filed a radar because he found a wrinkle in the rug. Did you see this?
I didn't see that.
Oh, I'll try and find this. He put it on. If it was Simon, he put it on Mastodon. I'll find it.
If only Mastodon search was search.
Yeah, I'm literally just gonna have to go through all of his posts and really hope that it was him, because otherwise, I found it, and he filed a feedback. It's very funny. I'm just going to read it. So, please straighten the wrinkle in the carpet in the living room scene in the Vision Pro simulator. Description: please describe the issue. There's a wrinkle in the carpet in the living room scene in the Vision Pro simulator. This is a slight annoyance to look at, but will become a real problem once my robot vacuum cleaner starts and gets stuck, and I don't have my living room scene cleaned, or even worse, someone trips over the wrinkle and breaks a leg. Very funny.
The other one I saw was Ben McCarthy, and they had posted some pictures of Obscura running in the simulator. And I thought it just looked like their apartment, like totally clean lines and nothing really going on.
I think that's actually right. We had Ben on Mac Stories Weekly a few weeks back, and they sent us photos of their desk setup, and it was all like super minimalistic and white. And
maybe the simulator is styled on Ben's apartment. That's where they got the inspiration.
It's a great aesthetic. So yeah.
So we talked about some of the different ways that apps can take shape in visionOS, but there's also a compatibility story here where developers can have their iPad app up and running. Has that been easy to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's literally zero effort. You just build your app as normal, and you can, run it in the Vision Pro simulator exactly like as you would choose between running it on an iPhone, any of the models, or an iPad or whatever. So it's just another entry that appears there. There are some interesting restrictions that you see from that, like everything runs light mode only, and I don't know if there's a way to override that. It's fixed window size, and there's like a little rotate control above the top if you support rotation. If you have if you have an iPad app that does AR stuff currently, as far as I can tell, that will not work. Like generally, and you can run iPhone apps as well.
Interesting. I don't think they talked about that. I wonder if that'll be available, I guess, in the App Store for visionOS, or maybe it'll be like in the Mac App Stores. Like, yes, this technically can run, but it's downplayed.
There's like a 2x, 4x, and 70x button, like it just gets like bigger and bigger.
I mean, they stick the iPad or iOS apps in a little sort of compatible apps folder automatically. So, everything has the circular icon, and then you see the sort of, cursed old apps.
So, James, is there a way for you to explain to three, shall I say, non-developer types like us, how complex, like how much work it is to get like one of your existing apps to run as a native visionOS app instead of like the iPad compatibility mode? Like, how does that work, and how much work is that for you?
I'll take the slow for you.
Thank you.
I mean, it really depends on how modern your code is and what technologies you're using.
How modern is your code?
My code is... So Dice and Peacock are both traditional UIKit apps, and Peacock has been around for, what are we at, 15 years or something like that? So I got both of them building and running in under an hour, I would say. Pretty much everything works. It just looks really bad. The spacing of controls is all over the place. Some things just feel like they don't make sense on visionOS, like popovers particularly. So I think there's a UI cleanup needed there at a minimum. And there's some stuff in terms of the APIs that aren't there. There's kind of obvious it doesn't make sense with the Vision Pro. So there's like a common thing you might do is to get the size of the screen, so if you're laying stuff out. And it's like, well, you can't get that. Or the orientation of the device, like if it's an iPad that's horizontal or vertical. So the majority of the work I needed to do was basically to patch that stuff out, and anywhere in the code where I was accessing things like that, just lie to the app and say, yeah, it's this. And doing that...
Is that because the windows are so much more resizable? Like the Apple basically wants you to just like flow?
It's not so much that, because you can get the size of the window, that exists. But there was also like a device object which you could query, and you could ask it things about kind of like the hardware you were running on. That is just something you can't do. You can find out the size of the window.
Okay.
If your app is written in Swift UI, then things are in theory going to be easier for you, because the UI in those apps, it's less precisely defined in terms of how it looks. You kind of just say, I want this list of controls or whatever, and the system does it. So in theory, that's going to adapt better to the host platform. And the other thing that they said was, if your code is basically up to date with sort of like iOS 14 era APIs, everything should be there and it should mostly just work. Two of the things they explicitly called out as not being supported were storyboards and SpriteKit. Storyboards are a way of laying out your user interface, and SpriteKit is just a 2D graphics stuff. And they said they're not supported, except they seem to work. So I'm not 100% sure about that, because I've got both storyboards and SpriteKit in Dice. It worked.
I feel like that they're two different things, right? Like not supported and works. Like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of stuff that is supported for now, like UIKit.
Yes. Like it almost feels like they're immediately saying this is deprecated, like with version 1.
They are literally saying that. Like there are warnings, like hundreds of warnings saying, I mean, why are you doing that?
Oh, I wouldn't. You know?
Yeah, and that, and then you get that 100 times, and the message is pretty clear. So you need to use SwiftUI to access a lot of the functionality, notably any of the true 3D content. So Apple's got this older 3D engine SceneKit, and you can use it, but you can't display any 3D content that's got depth. So everything runs okay, but it'll just look like a completely flat screen, whatever. And that's the 3D engine that I use for Dice, Peacock's About Screen, Podcastatron, all this stuff. So yeah, I need to redo all that. Did actually, like, I have a reality kit mode that's in Dice where I was like experimenting with stuff. So I think I can do most things, but yeah, we're not going to get a 3D screensaver by September. I apologize.
Do you really need a screensaver? Because it's just for your eyes, really.
Yeah, but can you imagine being inside that screensaver and how that would feel?
Especially the tube one. The tube one would be upsetting.
Is closing your eyes like a screensaver for your eyes?
Screensaver for your brain.
It's almost like the sleep mode that computers have.
And sometimes when you close your eyes, you can still see things. You know, the thoughts are really the screensavers.
Wow.
I mean, I know this is a comment not needed to be said, but I said it anyway. It's almost like Apple have been saying use SwiftUI for a reason. You know, like these are the reasons they want people to use this technology.
I am genuinely surprised that they supported UIKit and brought over, you know, things like SceneKit. Even if they're not rendering in 3D, they're still there. And I imagine that all this is there so that they can get things like Microsoft Office on board, who presumably are not going to rewrite their entire app into SwiftUI overnight. So I on the one hand, I see why they did it. It's pragmatic and it makes sense. And they actually support a lot more stuff than I thought they would. You know, like, so you get... with the Windows, you get these things called ornaments, which are kind of like little toolbars that float outside the content of the window. And you can do all that stuff in UIKit as well. So, you know, there is stuff there, but I'm kind of surprised they didn't draw the line in the sand and say, this is SwiftUI only. We've been saying this for years. You should have listened to us.
How much work is ahead of you from the point where you are now? We'll use Dice as, I think Dice is the easiest example, right? Of like an app that I think fits for this neatly. I have no doubt you will find some way to make PCalc work amazingly on the Vision Pro, but I'm assuming most of our listeners would be able to perceive Dice by PCalc in visionOS. How much work is ahead of you from now, the iPad app, to what you would want to, say, build a Dice tray in a volume that Dice could fly around inside of?
I mean, realistically, there's as much work as I want to do and as much as I'm able to do. And also, kind of is going to depend if I get a developer kit. You know, if I don't get a developer kit, I'm not sure how well I can do some of this stuff. That's not a threat, Apple, you know, like.
Or is it?
For Dice, there are different ways that I could bring it across. And like the simple one is like literally port what is there and have the SceneKit flat 2D thing, and it would probably work. And people, you know, it would be, in quotes, a visionOS app, but is it the kind of thing that people actually want? It's certainly not the kind of thing that would get featured by Apple.
I guess it depends how many apps there are. Maybe they'll be featuring iPad apps. I don't know.
I mean, they're shipping some iPad apps, and some of the system apps on the thing are iPad apps. But both of my apps are running, but I wouldn't say that they're necessarily running well. there's the spacing issues and there's stuff clipping, and I would need to do some thinking about how best to adapt them to the platform. But what I was thinking of is, in some ways, it's like bringing an iPad app to the Mac using Catalyst. You can just click a checkbox and there's an app, but don't do that. There is a lot of extra work you should do. And for this, I think it's a lot more extra work to kind of like reimagine your app for how it was going to work on a system like this.
People are going to have some wacky ideas, or best practices will evolve and sort of emerge over time. And I think that's going to be interesting to watch. Like, even if there's not a lot of apps at the beginning, where they end up 6 months or a year down the road is also exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of Apple's apps coming over in a pretty flat state, maybe with some like 3D stuff added to them. I mean, they have added some stuff that is like the way you would display an image currently in an app. You just load the image named foo and display it in this space. You can do that with a piece of 3D content, and it will float above the window. So there are some things that you could easily do to make the apps sort of pop a bit more. But I think, the completely reimagined stuff, I mean, for a start, I don't know if that's what you want. I mean, do you want to sit in, like Logic or Final Cut in a fully immersive space with everything around you? Or are you going to be using this like a sort of desktop computer environment where you're looking around at your windows and stuff?
I think the answer to that question is depends. The example you gave, which is Logic, no, I don't want to do that. But there are other apps where the answer would be yes, right? But I think it's up to each developer to try and decide if they have what kind of app they have and whether it can work, right? Like I would assume really that the best thing for pCalc is to just be more regular app, right? Like a window app. Like that's going to be how people will want to use it, but Dice will be best served as a volume most likely. So I think it's just how will it feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could run Dice pretty much in 3 modes. You could have it as like a little portal window that you're looking into this your Dice tray, and it is still from a different camera angles or whatever. Or you could have it as a physical tray sitting on your desk, or you could have it, you're rolling your dice and they're falling off your table kind of mode, and you can swish them around with your hands. And, that's kind of 3 apps to write. So, yeah, I mean,
but
I'm going to be busy.
Each of those would be fully appropriate. Well, if you put something into, like if you put pCalc in as a volume that you could put on your desk, that's cute, but not necessarily like appropriate. That
seems like sort of Easter egg level.
That seems like something James would do, right? But you know what I mean?
Does.
But like, it goes back to that question that you asked of like, what app, do you really want an app to be all around you? It depends. Some apps will just naturally fit more than others for each type of experience, and that's what's going to take the time. A minute ago, Stephen, you mentioned conventions. I wanted to say this before I forgot. One thing I really hope is that there's some kind of naming convention, like how when iPad apps are all called HD. I really hope that like developers settle on like, this is pCalc something, and like that's what everybody calls their Vision apps. That would be fun. I'd like that.
Like pCalc Reality, pCalc, I don't know.
Because because AR or VR won't necessarily work. I wouldn't be surprised if people put VR in their titles. Apple might have a bit of a...
It's a shame the XR name went away, because we could just slap that on there.
I don't know if it is a shame. I'm happy that they didn't call it XR or anything.
Dice by pCalc XR.
What about Verse? We could have pCalc Verse.
pCalc 3D. Everything is going to be called 3D.
You know what, Federico? That's it. 3D is the one.
Instapaper 3D.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's like a huge broadsheet newspaper. You just like big motions to turn the pages, I'll show you page, Carl.
I do think we're going to see more of the kind of like just traditional 2D apps at the start, because that's going to be the stuff that people will be able to get done for like day one. And then it's going to be the years, I think we'll see things. And also, I don't know if it's like on day one, should I have, do I spend my summer doing things like interactive widgets and whatever for the literal billions of customers who are going to have devices? Or do I spend my entire summer making a thing that pretty much only developers and the press will have?
I mean, I guess that's the beauty of early next year. There is a little bit of a gap, even though we don't know what it is.
Yeah, but early next year could be January 1st, or it could be May.
Yeah, I do think we'll see much more about that. I mean, I assume this is going to stay. I assume this is going to share the stage with the iPhone in the fall, and maybe they have a better date when we get there.
I would agree with you unless that date is like April.
Maybe.
Then they probably won't show it, right? Because then it would be just as useless as the last time they showed it.
I could see them doing something if they had more like entertainment stuff that they want to focus on. Like, here's No Man's Sky and here's, Beat Saber.
I just can't imagine them having an event and not being able to restrain themselves and talk about it again.
That's true. That is true. Like, hey, here's an update on what some of our developers, right? Like, it could just be that, right?
It could be that for sure.
Yeah. And just don't forget about this. It's coming next year, but we're like so excited. We just couldn't restrain ourselves from showing you a bit more. Like I would say, like for you, James, probably like if you were, if you want any of our advice, would be to focus on the stuff for the platforms that you already support first, right? Like that. There's only going to be so many of these things sold, and I think, if you weren't confident that you could get like a volume or a space built, it's maybe not worth it. Because I think that there is an initial gold rush for this device if somebody builds like a volume or a space and just charges for it. Like, they build an app that's in one, because it will be like the original iPhone, it will be like the original iPad, where people that buy that device will buy like any app they can that will be interesting to use. So like I do think that there is an opportunity, but it's not worth prioritizing over your like the realistic useful things that are in the next operating systems.
Yeah, and I think if I spent my entire summer, I could probably have something. So I think like I will work on interactive widgets until such time as I'm not allowed to. And
in DICE though, right? We're not going to do an interactive widget for Peak Out.
Who would do such a thing?
Because why would you waste your time, right, James?
Who can say?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I do think, the interactive widgets for many apps is kind of like the first thing I'll do. And then seeing where I get from that, it's like, and also like, if the kitchens are next month, that there's a certain amount of wanting to have your code in a state where you can go down to a kitchen and actually run it on a device.
Can I give an editor's note for kitchen? It's an old phrase. What are they called now? They're actually called they're like the developer sessions. Kitchen is what they used to be called, right? Like that.
Yeah, I am a very old school developer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's why we don't talk about the beer bash at WWDC anymore.
Indeed. Also, just because there are kitchens in the visionOS, right? There's an actual kitchen inside of visionOS, which makes it more complicated.
Yeah, well, this is true. If you get an invite to the kitchen, there could be a...
You left an app in there,
If your device runs hot, stay out of the kitchen. That's what they say.
Yeah, but I whatever the events are called, they seem to be coming.
Labs.
They seem to be coming sooner rather than later, and maybe we'll hear about the developer hardware next month. And if they send me one like it's going to be free. If I got one, then of course I'm going to play with it.
It's going to be fascinating to see what the operating system is like that arrives on those developer units.
I think held together with duct tape and good wishes.
I just wonder how much of the operating system is available to you. That would be really interesting.
I mean, there's quite a bit in the simulator itself. There's Control Center and other apps. So
I think it would be of benefit to have a unit which has a lot of the features that were available to the people that had the press sessions, because I think it will help inspire people a little bit as to what they should build.
You want, with any of these things, you look at Apple's first-party apps, and they are kind of they set the tone for what the interface is going to be for this thing. So yeah, I think it would make total sense.
Well, James, thank you for joining us today. Really excited to see what you come up with. I mean, I think all three of us, when we saw this device, we instantly thought of you. You worked so hard to be on all these platforms on day one. Fingers crossed that you get some time in the developer labs and hardware and all that stuff.
If nothing else, I'll have the screensaver ready.
Perfect. Where can people find you online, James?
I'm James Thomson on mastodon.social. That's Thomson without a P. And peakout.com is where all my apps live. And you might find me on Twitter, but I'm not really there.
I think that does it for this week's episode. A big thank you to James again for joining us. Talk all about visionOS. I'm sure there'll be many more conversations in the future. You can find us all online. You can find Myke on a bunch of other shows here on Relay FM, and he is the co-founder of Cortex Brand. You can find him on Mastodon as iMyke at myke.social. Federico is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net and is also on Mastodon as Vitici at MacStories.net over on the Don. On the Don, as the kids say. On the Don. You can find me on Mac Power Users each and every Sunday here on Relay FM. And my writing at 512pixels.net. And I am also on Mastodon as ISMH at eworld.social. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week. They're Clean My Mac X, Sofa, and Notion. Until next week, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.
Bye, y'all.